I find that terminology degrading. Okay? Because I'm not a birthing person. Okay? I'm a woman.
What's wrong with being called a birthing person?
Well, first of all, not all women even have the capacity to get pregnant. So it's degrading to them to be essentially to have their womanhood questioned if they're not if they're unable to have kids to begin with.
Ana Kasparian and Patrick Bet-David had a debate over on the Valuetainment YouTube channel, and Ana Kasparian in this clip here said a lot of things that Patrick Bet-David and I agree with, but then she says one thing that just sets everything off, and you can tell Patrick Bet-David is not just disappointed but also a little angered by the things that Ana Kasparian is saying. It's just wild. It's wild how she can have so much common sense in some areas, and then every once in a while she says something and you're just like, oh yeah, you're that kind of person. You're still a wokey. You know, we need to wake Ana Kasparian fully up because she's well on her way, but she still has these opinions that are just absolutely insane. And in this video, she exposes one of those opinions to Patrick Bet-David, and like I said, he's very, very disappointed and also angry that people are spreading these kinds of narratives. Let's check this out here from Ana Kasparian versus Patrick Bet-David on the Valuetainment YouTube channel.
Their own corner. Everyone takes their ball and they go home. Okay. So to answer your question, you are correct. I do not like to be bullied or pressured into saying things or believing things that I do not believe. I find that terminology degrading. Okay. Because I'm not a birthing person. Okay. I'm a woman.
What's wrong with being called a birthing person?
Well, first of all, not all women even have the capacity to get pregnant. So it's degrading to them to be essentially to have their womanhood questioned if they're not if they're unable to have kids to begin with. But also, I mean, look, this is the thing that annoys me about this entire issue and conversation, because they'll turn around and they'll say, no one's calling you a birthing. Okay, does someone need to call an individual who finds the N-word offensive, the N-word, in order for him or her to find it offensive or degrading? You get what I'm saying? Someone needs to be called that word to find it problematic or to have an issue with it. And besides which, I was called that. Okay. Yes, in a medical setting, but this is a doctor who knows I'm a biological woman. Call me a woman. But I had a conversation with that doctor. Why did you feel the need to call me a birthing person? Like, where did that come from? And in California, medical providers are basically like told that there will be penalties if they don't use the proper terminology or if they're caught doing anything discriminatory toward the trans community. Now, if they're actually doing something discriminatory,
California needs to be out of the United States. Like, that state is just such a piece of trash. It's absolutely insane. That is insane. Like, not only is the entire state, not the entire state, there's some nice parts of California, of course, but the major cities, San Francisco and Los Angeles, like, just riddled with crime, homelessness, just horrible cities to be in, you know, absolutely horrible cities to be in. I think Los Angeles and San Francisco are, like, I think the two top cities, if not the only two cities. I forget what the terminology was, but where people are leaving, like they're netting negative people living there. You know, they're netting negative citizens in those cities. People are just leaving like crazy because it's a horrible place to live. Why would you want to live in California or Los Angeles right now? And it's spreading to all of California. It's going to eventually spread to all of California. And then once people continue to leave, they're going to spread it in other places as well, because they're going to keep voting like they voted in California, because their brain is just, they just don't have any logic or reason within it. I don't understand it, but that's just how they are. Like calling Ana Kasparian a birthing person as a doctor, and also that being mandated by the state, it's just insane, man. Like, y'all have to get out of California if you're in there. That state needs to get out of the United States. It's an embarrassment to the rest of the citizens of the country for California to be a part of the United States. It just brings the entire country down. And also, the people that live in California, largely, if you're still there, you're probably just absolutely brainwashed at this point. And they have so many electoral votes. They need to just get out of the United States, dude. They need to get out. They're an embarrassment.
discriminatory toward the trans community. I think medical providers absolutely should face consequences. But the idea that we should change all of our terminology, even toward women who want to be called women, in order to be inclusive is ridiculous to me. Now, if a transgender person wants to be called that, fantastic. I respect it. I'll do it. I'll engage in it. But I think in the context of my relationship with my doctors, I want to be called a woman. It's not that difficult. It is my personal preference. Okay? That doesn't mean that I in any way believe that transgender people should be treated differently or that they should be discriminated against.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Or that they should not live lives of dignity. I have had an entire career defending them, supporting them, and this one issue led to ridiculous outrage among a fringe component of that community. They are not representative of the entire transgender community, and for that fringe component, if they think that they're going to shut me up and force me to say things I don't believe, they've got another thing coming. Okay? I'm going to say what I think every single time.
Do you think they're crossing the line a little bit and it's getting a little bit too ridiculous in certain sectors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
they turn people off with it. And again, it is a fringe component of the transgender community.
It's crazy to hear people on the left say things like this. You know, it definitely makes me respect Ana Kasparian for saying this, because her saying that it turns people off, I think it's, you know, she says it's a fringe portion of the community that acts like this. I think it's a fringe portion of the community that acts like Ana Kasparian acts. You know, there's a very small portion of people that are willing to admit that the radicality, if that's a word, of the left in that sector, the way that how just insane they are, turns people off, like turns her off. I don't think many people get turned off by it. I don't think many people would, even if they did, would say it out loud like Ana Kasparian is. I think she's a very fringe portion of the left for saying this. You know, I think most people who are on the left, especially still, who are bought into that, all that nonsense that they're talking about here, I think they like it. I think every time something gets more radical and more insane, they feed off that. And they're like, yes, a new software update. I get to yell at people for not saying this, for not saying birthing person and saying woman instead. I think they like that stuff. Most people who are still on the left today, I think they enjoy that. And you know, I think Ana Kasparian is a fringe portion of the left. And I think, honestly, her saying stuff like this, she's probably not going to be at the Young Turks for very much longer. And I think she'll be bigger without the Young Turks. Like, if she went off and did her own thing instead, I think she'd be a lot bigger. I don't think, you know, a lot of people within the Young Turks are calling for her to be fired and stuff like that because of her saying things like this that she's saying to Patrick Bet-David here. And honestly, I think for her sake, I think it'd be better if she left or was fired from the Young Turks. I think she would be a lot bigger. I think at this point, she's kind of bigger than the Young Turks. And she's too smart for them. The young, like everybody else at the Young Turks, is just completely brainwashed, hasn't had a software update in years. They're just saying the same talking points over and over and over again. Every once in a while, Ana Kasparian kind of forces Cenk to recognize that he's wrong on a couple of things. But for the most part, everybody else at the Young Turks is just saying the same exact thing over and over again. Ana Kasparian is the only one that's willing to actually challenge herself, challenge the opinions, current opinions that she holds, and is realizing that she's been wrong about a lot of them recently.
And they don't even realize how counterproductive they're being.
And who's allowed for that to happen? Who's been a part of that becoming a reality? Who do you think?
Look, I think most people want to do the right thing. Okay. And so they want to be as accepting and tolerant and inclusive as possible. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to come across as being in any way discriminatory. And I respect that. I think that it comes from a good place, but they shut their brains off sometimes and just go along with things without considering maybe some of the unexpected consequences, how others might feel about what they're engaging in. I think that there's this conflation with the gay community and the transgender community, because think about it. Like, I think a lot of people on the left think of the trans community the same way they thought of the gay community, right? Like, yeah, why not legalize gay marriage? Like, what's wrong with that? Who's it hurting? But when it comes to some transgender issues, there is a lot on the line, right? Like, when we do talk about kids transitioning, you want to make sure that we have a system in place where there's a proper protocol implemented to ensure that we're not transitioning kids who might not actually be transgender.
You think it's okay to transition kids under the age of 18, even if the parents consent?
What do you mean, medically?
Medically. Anna, you seem very smart to me, and I think you have common sense.
Yeah, I do have common sense. I think it's a very difficult question to answer, okay? I think that it is a problem when certain states completely ban it, because there are...
Look, let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? Do you think it's a problem if states completely ban it? Because personally, I would like to hear Ana Kasparian's pros and cons list of banning it. Because personally, I can't think of many cons of banning it. I can't think of many pros of letting children under 18 transition. I can't think of many pros of it. What are the pros? Like, isn't like a very common piece of advice for people who are trying to make a big decision, or maybe they're going through an emotional time and it's time to make a decision, is like, just sleep on it. Like, just wait a few days and then make the decision when emotions aren't as heightened, when your emotions calm down a little bit, you're not as flustered. The same thing should go for a absolutely life-altering, possibly, for a lot of people, life-ruining decision. You should at least wait until you're after 18. I mean, obviously, I'm of the opinion that you shouldn't do it at all, but you shouldn't be allowed to do that under 18. There's just no way. What are the pros? What are the positives?
Instances of, let's say, teenagers who identify as transgender, they're legitimately transgender, and I don't want to cause harm to those people, right? I think it's a decision that should be left between the parents and the doctors. But at the same time, there are certain things going on where I do worry. Like, I don't know if you guys have read about the Tavistock clinic in the UK that's shut down. And the reason why it shut down is because it just became this system of transitioning minors without really doing the proper protocols to ensure that they're working with people who are legitimately transgender.
Okay, so you're 14 years old. I don't know if you said 14 or 13 years old. When your mom tells you, what do you want to be? You said, I want to go be an actress. So she's not going to be a pachatsats, right? And you said, I'm going to go be a Barbara Walters. Why don't you go be a journalist? Okay, that's exactly what I want to do. And I go, okay. What if your mom doesn't say that to you? What if your mom doesn't put that in your head? What if you go into Hollywood? Maybe your life's going to be a different story today. I don't know what it's going to be, good, bad, or ugly, but it's going to be a different life.
That's probably what.
But what I'm saying is, it's going to be a very different life. I actually think you would, because you have drive, but it's going to be a different life, no matter what direction you would have gone to. But the point I want to make is with this whole concept of even entertaining the thought of it being okay before the age of 18. Then that means, like, my idea, I have a controversial idea. I would rather have a 15-year-old kid that has a job paying taxes vote than a 28-year-old person who's never had a job, never paid taxes. That person shouldn't vote. So some people, you're out of your mind. I get it. It's not a normal idea that I'm proposing. You have the right to say you're out of your mind. But what my idea is, I want to give people the right to vote who earned the right to vote, who have contributed to society, minus those who have disabilities, things like that. That's not what I'm talking about, or elderly. All I'm talking about is a 15-year-old person should have the right to vote, who is paying taxes, has a W-2 job, has paid $3,000 of taxes, whatever, versus 28-year-old who hasn't. But this concept of saying, yeah, I think my son told me, he's a girl, and we have to do this, and da-da-da-da, and they're crying, getting emotional. I think we have to be a little less tolerant to stupidity and insanity. If you're 19 years old and you say, like my kids will say, that my son is having this tattoo conversation with me. Here we go. And you know which son it is. He's like, hey, but such and such has tattoos. I said, but Michael Jordan didn't have tattoos. He said, that's a good point. I said, Brady doesn't have tattoos. By the way, I hope these guys don't have tattoos in weird places. All I know is I've never seen tattoos.
Yeah. You don't know.
Michael could have a tattoo of goat somewhere you're never going to see. But all I'm saying is these guys will say, like, what about this? And what if I want to get it? I'm like, dude, let me just put it to you this way. When you're 18, you can get it. Till then, I'm not going to support you getting a tattoo. After that, do your thing. My goal is to try to encourage you, and as much as I can, to one day not do this, right?
Right. I mean, but that's your parental right. Okay, so I think that I get uncomfortable.
It is his parental right, but I already know what she's about to say, and that's just so dangerous. We've seen so many instances of parents basically grooming their kids, pushing their kids in a certain direction from birth. Like, I don't need to list off examples. You guys know a lot of people who I'm talking about. we've seen so many examples of this happening, where parents, the child is born and the parents have an agenda from the jump. They're going to push their kid to be transgender, or they're going to push their kid to be gay or something like that. And if we give parents those rights to do that, to make that call, the decision between the parents and the doctor, I guess that's the best we can do in today's age. But I just think it needs to be completely off limits until they're 18. I don't care if the parents say 100%, the child says 100%, and the doctor says 100%. It's all good. We can go through with this. I still think it needs to wait until they're 18, until they can get through. Like does a 13-year-old really know if they're transgender? Like, come on. Like, are we really saying that? And the parents thing, I just think it's the best interest of the child to have it be off limits until they're 18. That's the best we can do in today's age. Obviously, I wish it would be off limits for longer or permanently, but I think the best thing we can do in today's age right now is to have them at least wait until they're 18. I don't care about between the parents and the doctor thing. Yeah, I just think that's a bunch of nonsense. Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking about what Ana Kasparian and Patrick Bet-David talked about in this clip. I thought it was a pretty great clip until Ana Kasparian brought up that, she supports people under 18 being able to transition and stuff like that. Let me know in the comments, what are your opinions on this whole Ana Kasparian versus Patrick Bet-David debate?